In the aftermath of the Greg Biffle tragedy, thousands of questions have flooded the aviation community. Was it the engine? Was it the pilot? Was it the age of the aircraft? While we wait for the official NTSB report, veteran Citation Captain Glen, who has spent 40 years flying these specific jets, has come forward with a new analysis. He isn't just offering theories, he is offering a warning. He points to a terrifyingly small detail that could explain everything: the nose baggage door. Could a simple unlatched door bring down a jet carrying a NASCAR legend? And beyond the mechanics, Glen exposes a deeper, darker systemic issue: the fatal lies that happen on the tarmac every day. Lies about weight, lies about training, lies about maintenance. Today on the Air Debrief, we are not just reporting news. We are conducting a masterclass in survival. We are taking Glen's 4 decades of experience and distilling them into the rules written in blood. If you ever plan to step foot on a private jet, you need to understand what we are about to show you. Let's start with the most chilling theory Glen has presented: the baggage door scenario. On the Citation 2, there is a baggage compartment located right in the nose of the aircraft, directly in front of the cockpit windshield. It is secured by 2 mechanical latches and 1 key lock. To the untrained eye, it's just a storage locker, but aerodynamically, it is a critical surface. Glen explains the Swiss cheese model of how this door becomes a killer. It starts on the ground. Imagine the scene. The pilot is busy with pre-flight checks: fuel, weather, clearance. The owner, trying to be helpful, says, "I'll load the bags, Captain. I'll lock the door." The pilot, trusting the owner, doesn't double-check. This is the first fatal mistake. Rule 1. The baggage door is the captain's territory. Now the plane takes off. It accelerates to 150-180 knots. The aerodynamic pressure builds. If those latches aren't fully secured, the wind acts like a pry bar. Bang! The door rips open. In a single-engine plane, this might just be noisy, but in a jet, this is catastrophic. First, the noise. Glen describes it as a deafening explosion of wind noise, instantly overwhelming the cockpit communications. Second, the debris. If a suitcase, a golf bag, or the door itself detaches, where does it go? Based on the airflow over the Citation fuselage, the debris flies backward, straight into the engine intakes mounted on the tail. This is the nightmare scenario: foreign object damage, or FOD. The pilot is now dealing with a massive distraction: aerodynamic drag destroying the lift over the nose, and a catastrophic engine failure caused by the ingested baggage. It is an unrecoverable chain of events. While the NTSB has found the door damaged at the scene, we don't know yet if it opened before or after impact. But Glen's warning is clear: if you trust someone else to lock your life away, you might pay the ultimate price. This brings us to the second critical point Glen raised: the danger of the old jet. There is a misconception that old planes are unsafe. Glen corrects this. The Citation 2 is a tank. It is built to last. But flying it requires a superhuman level of skill compared to modern jets. Look at the difference. In a modern CJ-4, you have an FMS flight management system. It is essentially a supercomputer co-pilot. It calculates your fuel, your weight, your V-speeds. It warns you if the runway is too short. It screams at you if you are too heavy. Now, look at Greg Biffle's cockpit. It was original, analog, no FMS. Who does the math? The pilot. Glen calls this the workload trap. In a normal flight, a single pilot can handle it. But in an emergency, like an engine failure on takeoff, the workload spikes from 10% to 110% in a split second. The pilot has to fly the plane, talk to ATC, diagnose the engine, feather the prop, and manage the drift. All without a computer helper. This creates task saturation. The brain simply shuts down. Glen's verdict is blunt: if you buy a cheap jet, you need an expensive pilot. Putting a low-time, inexperienced pilot in a high-workload vintage jet is a recipe for disaster. The machine demands respect, and it demands experience that only comes from decades in the seat. So, how does a pilot survive this workload? The answer lies in one of the most important concepts in aviation: the boxed items. Glen emphasizes that in every flight manual there are certain procedures surrounded by a bold black or red box. These are memory items. When an engine fires, or the cabin decompresses, or the thrust reverser deploys uncommanded, you do not have time to reach for the book. You must know these steps cold. Immediate action. Muscle memory. This exposes the massive gap in pilot training that Glen highlights. There are two worlds of training. World A, the gold standard like Flight Safety International. Here, pilots are put in full motion simulators. They are grilled for weeks. They practice boxed items until they can do them blindfolded. World B, the mom and pop flight schools. Here, training might be a weekend course, a quick check ride in the airplane, no intense simulator failures. You're a retired captain? Good enough. Here's your stamp. The hesitation we suspect in the Greg Biffle crash, the startle factor, suggests a failure of memory items. If the pilot froze, or if he reached for a checklist when he should have been stomping on the rudder, it indicates that his training might not have been up to the gold standard. Glen asks the uncomfortable question every owner should ask. Where did your pilot go to school? Did he buy his rating for $10,000 at a local school? Or did you pay $30,000 for the rigorous training that saves lives? In aviation, you get exactly the safety you pay for. Finally, Glen attacks the most common and perhaps the most dangerous habit in private aviation, the weight lie. We all do it. The doctor asks how much we weigh. We say 180 when we are 200. But in a citation jet, lying to the pilot is lying to physics. Glen recounts the pressure owners put on pilots. We want to go non-stop to Florida. Load the bags, load the fuel, let's go. But the Citation 2 has limits. If you load 7 people, full baggage, and full fuel, you are likely over maximum takeoff weight. Worse, you are likely out of center of gravity, or CG. If too much weight, golf clubs, luggage is in the aft baggage compartment, the nose becomes light. On takeoff, a light nose wants to pitch up. If it pitches up too high, the wing stalls. At 200 feet, a stall is unrecoverable. Glen's rule is absolute. Don't lie to me about weight. 30 pounds might not seem like much to a passenger, but 30 pounds on a long moment arm creates a massive destabilizing force. Was Greg Biffle trying to stretch the range? Was the plane heavy? Glen suggests that a prudent pilot would have planned a fuel stop. I would rather stop for fuel and arrive late than try to stretch it and arrive in a coffin. This get-there-itis, the urge to fly non-stop regardless of physics, is a trap that catches even the most experienced aviators. There is another layer to the physics trap that Glen highlights, something pilots call the dirty configuration. Based on the witness reports, the plane was seen banking, possibly attempting to return to the airport or circle towards the golf course. Glen suspects they might have been in a go-around scenario. Here is the deadly math of a Citation 2 on one engine. If you have the landing gear down and the flaps down, you have turned your sleek jet into a barn door. The aerodynamic drag is massive. In a modern jet with FMS, if you push the throttle for a go-around, the computer helps you manage the energy. But in an old manual jet, if you try to turn while you are dirty and missing an engine, you are bleeding energy at a catastrophic rate. Glen points out, if he didn't bring that gear back up, he's going to lose a lot of altitude. It sounds simple, raise the gear, but remember the workload trap we discussed? In the panic of an engine failure and a baggage door explosion, did the pilot remember to clean up the airplane, or was he so focused on the turn that he left the gear dragging in the wind? A Citation 2, heavy with fuel and passengers on one engine, with gear down, simply cannot maintain altitude in a turn. It physically cannot do it. It sinks. And when it sinks into the tree line, no amount of pilot skill can save it. This reinforces the absolute necessity of those memory items. Positive rate, gear up. If you miss that step because you are startled, the drag demon wins. Now, let's dig deeper into the machine's history. Glen calls this Logbook Forensics. When you buy a used jet, you aren't just buying metal, you are buying the previous owner's habits. Glen draws a sharp distinction that every owner needs to understand, the general practitioner versus the specialist. If a mechanic spends his day fixing Cessna 172 seconds, Piper Cubs, and the occasional King Air, and then tries to fix a complex hydraulic issue on a Citation jet, he is guessing. He opens the manual, he reads, he tries. He is learning on your airplane. Glen warns, red flag, red flag, red flag. A mechanic at a certified Cessna service center has seen that specific valve fail 1,000 times. He doesn't guess, he He knows. Why does this matter for the Greg Biffle crash? Because of the baggage door. Was that door latch adjusted by a specialist who knows the exact tension required? Or was it tweaked by a local mechanic who thought tight enough is good enough? In aviation, good enough is what gets people killed. The NTSB will trace the signature of the last person who touched that door latch. If that signature belongs to a generic shop rather than a specialist, it shifts the blame from a freak accident to negligent maintenance. This is Rule #5, the pedigree. Don't tell me the plane is safe. Show me the signatures of the men who kept it safe. As we await the NTSB's final forensic report, Glen's insights provide us with a roadmap of what likely went wrong. It wasn't just one thing. It never is. It is the chain of events. Perhaps a baggage door latch was worn. Perhaps the owner closed it incorrectly. Perhaps the pilot was startled and fell behind the jet. And perhaps the heavy weight made recovery impossible. Based on this analysis, here are the rules written in blood that every passenger and owner must know. The captain's key. The baggage door is the captain's responsibility alone. The workload reality. Old jets require superior pilots, not cheaper ones. The memory items. Training must be rigorous, recent, and specific to the jet. The weight truth. Never lie to gravity. The pedigree. Trust only specialist maintenance. Greg Biffle was a legend on the track. But in the sky, the laws of physics apply equally to everyone. Until we have the final data, let these rules serve as his legacy lessons that might save the next flight. I'm your host for the Air Debrief. Fly safe.